Chances are you won't finish this video, and that's okay. But if you do, I want to tell you about one of the strangest fears I've developed as I've gotten older. A fear I didn't even know I had until recently. The weird thing is, if you asked me a few years ago what I was afraid of, I probably would have given you the same answers most people my age would. Finding a career that feels meaningful, or making enough money to live comfortably, losing people I care about, or waking up one day and realizing I've wasted years of my life worrying about things that never mattered. The usual stuff. But this fear wasn't even on my radar. Maybe that's because I'm only 25. I don't have kids. I'm not planning to have kids anytime soon. Most days, I'm still trying to figure out my own life. Sometimes I still feel like a teenager pretending to be an adult. So naturally, becoming a father isn't exactly something that occupies my mind on a daily basis. Yet, for some reason, it keeps finding its way back to me. Usually late at night when everything is quiet, when I'm alone with my thoughts and my brain decides it's the perfect time to ask questions I don't have answers to. And lately, the question that's been showing up the most is surprisingly simple. What kind of father would I be? Not when, not even if, just what kind? And honestly, I don't know. A part of me wants kids someday. Part of me doesn't. And part of me genuinely has no idea what I want. But regardless of what happens, I can't seem to stop thinking about it. When I imagine having kids one day, my mind doesn't immediately go to those happy moments people usually talk about. It doesn't go to family vacations, teaching them how to ride a bike, or watching them graduate. Those moments sound beautiful, don't get me wrong. I'd be lying if I said I never thought about them. But my mind always wanders somewhere else first. It goes to the parts of myself that I'm still trying to understand. The flaws, the habits, the fears, the things I thought I'd have figured out by now but somehow still carry around with me. And then I start wondering something that makes me deeply uncomfortable. What if my kid ends up being a lot like me? And I'm not talking about physically my appearance or my personality on the surface. I mean really like me. What if they inherit my tendency to overthink everything? What if they're just as stubborn as I am? What if they're afraid of failure the same way I've been afraid of failure? I don't want them to spend years doubting themselves when they don't need to. I don't want them to be their own critic, just like I am, and be so hard on myself that some days I can't even breathe. I don't want them to carry the same invisible weight that I've carried for so much of my life, because if I'm being honest, I know how exhausting that can be. I know what it's like to overanalyze a simple conversation for hours afterwards. I know what it's like to hold yourself to impossible standards set by no one else but yours truly. I also do know what it's like to be afraid of making the wrong decision because you're terrified of regretting it later. And if those are things I never want my child to experience, then why would I be okay with passing them down? The older I get, the more I realize that we inherit much more than we think. Not just our eyes or our physique, not just the obvious things. We inherit ways of thinking, ways of reacting, coping, loving, and oftentimes even fears. Most of the time, nobody passes these things down intentionally. And that's the part I've been thinking about a lot lately. Because when I was younger, I used to look at adults as if they had all the answers, especially my parents. When you're a kid, your parents seem larger than life. They seem certain, they seem capable, and they seem like they know exactly what they're doing. Then I got older, and the older I've gotten, the more I realized that adults are just people who are trying, people who are guessing more than they're willing to admit, people who are carrying their own insecurities while pretending they're confident and figuring things out in real time, the same way I am right now. And that realization has changed the way I see my parents. There are things they did that I understand now that I never understood before. There are mistakes they made that make more sense to me now. Not because they were right, not because they were perfect, but because they were human. For most of my life, I looked at my parents and saw parents. Now I look at them and I see people. People who were probably scared sometimes. People who probably doubted themselves. People who probably lay awake at night wondering if they were doing enough. They who were trying to raise children while simultaneously dealing with their own struggles. And to be honest, I think that's the part that scares me the most. Not necessarily the responsibility or the sleepless nights or the financial aspect of it. The thing that scares me is realizing that one day, if I become a parent, I'll probably feel just as unprepared as they did. Somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that becoming a parent was something that happened right after you'd figure yourself out. After you healed, matured, and become the best version of yourself. But maybe that's not how life works. Maybe nobody ever fully figures themselves out. Nobody reaches a point where they're completely healed, completely wise, and completely ready. Maybe every parent in history has quietly wondered whether they're enough. Maybe every parent has looked at their own flaws and hoped they wouldn't become somebody else's burden. And maybe that's what it means to be human. Lately, I've been realizing that every generation is carrying something from the generation before it. In some cases, some people inherit confidence or resilience, but in others, we inherit fears or wounds. Most of the time, we inherit a little bit of everything, the good and the bad. And maybe the goal isn't to stop that completely. Maybe that's impossible. Maybe the goal is simply to become aware of it, to look honestly at the things we've inherited, to keep the parts worth keeping, and to work on the parts that hurt us. Maybe that's what growth actually is. Not becoming perfect or eliminating every flaw, but just becoming conscious enough to break a few cycles before they continue. I still don't know whether I want children someday. I genuinely don't. Some days the answer feels obvious, other days it doesn't. But regardless of what happens, this thought has changed the way I see both myself and the people who raised me. Because the older I get, the less I judge my parents for being imperfect, and the more I admire them for trying, for showing up and carrying responsibilities they probably weren't fully prepared for. Because they weren't superheroes. They weren't experts. They were just people. People doing the best they could with what they knew at the time. And maybe, just maybe, one day, if life takes me down that path, that'll be me too. Not completely ready, but just trying my best. Thanks for watching, Rado, and I'll see you in the next video.